Are we really providing our patients with their personal right? In my nursing assistant class this year, the most common phrase we always heard was, a patient always has the right to choose what they do with their life. Always. You couldn't do anything without it. You had to always go off the patient's quest. For example, a patient has the right to sign a DNR, a do not resuscitate order. This means that even though the person is dying and you have the ability to fix them or give them CPR or shock their heart again, if they sign a DNR, you cannot physically touch them. It's illegal. You will be sued. If this is legal and the ability to refuse critical medical treatment needed to remain alive is legal, then why isn't allowing a patient to choose whether or not they want to suffer or pass them with dignity? Euthanasia is the use of intentional physician-assisted suicide, PSA, that allows for terminally ill people to end their suffering with a quick, dignified, and compassionate procedure. PatientsRightCouncil.org is where that was from. The biggest key perks and reasons to legalize euthanasia is relieving a patient of ache and travail, dismissing families of consistent sadness and stress, and simply respecting the patient's right to choose what they prefer. The number one reason euthanasia should be legal is to cure patients of pain and suffering, especially when they ask you for it and request it. Nothing is more heartbreaking than to see a patient on their deathbed. If fully aware of their condition, their illness, then they should be able to decide whether or not they want to live or pass with dignity. For example, here recently in my nursing assisting class again, we did clinicals at Parkview Nursing Home. If you ask the patients, hey, how are you today? They would say, no, not really, not too great. I'm just ready to go home and be with the Lord. Or, it's just another day here. We're just waiting to see whether or not my wife or I will pass first. Just that kind of negative attitude every day. This was absolutely heartbreaking to me. I didn't understand how you could be so pessimistic at life. But putting yourself in their shoes, would you really want to go through the motions of so-called living every day in a home with not being able to take care of yourself? Patients had such a limited ability to do basic, simple, everyday tasks like functioning mentally, physically for one, eating on their own, or going to the bathroom on their own. It's like they'd return back to a state of childhood, which is heartbreaking. Through the use of euthanasia, a physician could easily, with consent of course, inject medication into an IV or prescribe a medication to end their pain and suffering of one. Besides, isn't that what a patient desires? Shouldn't that be what we as healthcare providers legally have to do? The number two reason we should legalize euthanasia is to cure families of persistently dealing with stress and sadness. Look at a family affected by cancer. I've been blessed and never had to deal with this, but I have several friends that have. I cannot tell you how many times my friends have come up to me and said, I just wish that we could let him go. I feel that I'm being selfish because we're keeping him here when he really doesn't even want to be here. I once had a friend tell me that by making them stay alive, it's really heartbreaking to me because they're just hooked up to tubes. They're not even who we think they are anymore. Families do not deserve to have to drag out the sorrow of losing a loved one. Most would rather bear through the initial heartbreak and remember their loved ones the way that they wish to, not hooked up to a machine or a tube. Although miracles do happen, the use of euthanasia technique would provide a solution to several instances, especially cancer patients with little or no hope of living that normal life again. The third reason to legalize euthanasia is declining a patient's personal right is federally unlawful, but more importantly, unethical. Every other aspect within the medical field is based on the patient's right to choose what they prefer, so why is euthanasia not? If the patient is fully aware of all possible outcomes, explain the procedure in terms that they understand, with emphasis on the intent of dying, gives consent to the euthanasia, then isn't there a right to do so? There are numerous court cases due to hospitals denying an individual's personal choice in surgeries or first responders, for example. But if they're wishing to die, how is that different from them wishing to live? If fully cognizant of their situation and decision, how is it legal to keep someone alive at their wishes, but illegal to give them the opposite? Ultimately, most hospitals and care facilities are aimed at helping patients get better, but cannot in some situations. As a physician, there is one point you reach that you know there is nothing you can do anymore to help the patient, but you legally have to. If you walk into a patient's room and their heart monitor has been gone for a while and you know that they're not going to make it, you still have to do chest compressions and CPR. Instead of being hooked up to life support for unimaginable periods of time, knowing that there is little hope, there needs to be a legal cure for this pain and suffering. If it's the patient's want to do so, then it's their right to do so. Families should not have to go through the pain and heartbreak as long as they do. Euthanasia should be legal as a cure to these issues, for it would provide a legal, dignified way, which is the most important to me, to escape the living of one who no longer wants to do so. In the end, the patient should always have the right to choose the outcome of their life and the medical treatment that they are given. For more information, visit life.org, churchofeuthanasia.org, and thank you.